Hi, this is Gertrude and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel.
Skrill King Thorin's imaginary phone? Who is this speaking? Mr. Pools. I'm sorry, I'm not from... Oh, Mr. Esports Pools. Right, okay, yes. Yes, of course, sir, yes. Yeah, and what is it? What's the problem? No. I've let them all know about the fantasy betting. Yes, they're fully aware that they can play, and it's not real teams and players. It's picking real players, but they don't play within that team, and as much as they just get their own individual. Yeah, they understand that. I think they understand that, mate. Yeah. No, I've always telling them about the live in-play betting. If anything, they've heard too much about live in-play betting. And at this point in time, they should just shit or get off the pot and actually try live in-play betting. Maybe it's fun. Maybe it's good. Maybe if you want to bet during a game, that's sort of a revolutionary feature in the industry. No, listen, you're preaching to the choir here, mate. I know that. The only thing is, though, you know they actually, what's bizarre is they actually think you're some sort of a company. Yeah, they think you're like some sort of a service. They're not aware that you are actually a digital AI projection from the human collective unconscious through the medium of the materia of silicon-based technology, representing the archetypal meeting point between luck and skill that rests inside the human heart, because these are factors which tear at us all. No, they don't know these things. So anyway, I mean, listen, I'm not here to philosophize. I'm just here to talk about Counter-Strike. Now, Dreamhack Masters Marseille 2018 is upon us. Dreamhack Masters, obviously one of my favorite tournament circuits. I've always thought Dreamhack did very good tournaments. I actually think their Masters brand is pretty cool. It's been a way to maintain some of the prestige, some of the kind of premier status that they've unfortunately lost due to the jostling in the hierarchy of the Counter-Strike circuit, whereby Dreamhack Open events, Dreamhack Winters, they're not as big events as they used to be in the past, or comparative to their peers at the ESLs, the Star Ladders, etc. of the world. But the Dreamhack Masters event are right up there with any event. In my opinion, when you add in the format, in terms of just a tournament, taking away prestige, they're actually better than majors as far as I'm concerned. Then you've got to add in, they've even done a format that I'm actually a big fan of, which is if you can't run all best of threes, so okay, people like Star Ladder have run all best of threes, Epicenter, but some people, because of the days and the way they've structured their format, they can't run all best of threes. I prefer this system where you make it the opening match as a best of one, and the elimination match in the groups a best of one, but the winners match is a best of three, so you can't get to the playoffs without winning a best of three, and the deciding match is a best of three, so you must win at least one best of three. In fact, you can only win one best of three, and you will get to the playoffs in that scenario. And if you're eliminated after losing two best of ones, don't really care that much. Like, I care, but you're at the bottom of my priority. So I like this tournament format generally, especially if you can't run all best of threes in some of the other tournament formats. Then you look at the teams that are here. There's some very good teams here. This is a very stacked event. Now, esports pools obviously are running everything for this event. So actually at the end of this video, I'll enter the fantasy contest. I'll maybe make some bets if they're up. They also actually are running a gleam contest, which will run for the next, I think, like 3 or 4 days. So you can enter it even during the tournament, like once it's actually begun, where you have to do like a bunch of different things in order, and you get the chance, like, I think some sort of like raffle tickets. And then as a result, you can potentially win like a G2 jersey, flag, all the sorts of G2 stuff, because they've cooperated with G2 on this. Now, one of the interesting things about this tournament, it's already a great tournament, but it's going to be incredibly difficult to know what's going to happen, though, because actually this tournament reminds me a little bit of Dreamhack Masters, the one that we had at Malmo, which, if you remember, was the first big tournament after the player break. And because it was right after the player break, we were in this weird scenario where we had all these roster moves after the major. We had teams coming in where they'd had the break, so we didn't know what form was going to continue. Roster moves are the storyline of this particular event. Think about it. We've got FaZe, the most consistent team, the best team in the world, #1 default ranked team in the world, because even though they don't win, they always place top 4, make a lot of finals. They've just changed out Olaf Meister for Exist. Cloud9, winners of the major. Yes, their form had really cooled off since. They've lost Stewie 2K. They've got FNS. He's now the in-game leader, so a bunch of changes there. Team Liquid, very consistent performance throughout the year. Only won Summit, which isn't a massive event, but still had some good teams there. Still waiting to kind of break through to true championship form. They've gotten Taco instead of Steel. SK, massively underwhelming form throughout the year. Some really poor placings, no finals whatsoever. They've managed to get Stewie 2K. They've lost Taco. Who knows what's going to go on there? G2, obviously, lost Choxy. He had his injury. They brought in Mixwell, who actually apparently can speak French. And they put NBK as in-game leader. Again, lots of different roster moves, role swaps. So it's really tough to predict this tournament. And personally, I don't like previews which just take the part of the tournament that's known, which is the group stage or the Swiss system, whatever, and just analyze that only. Because the most interesting part of the tournament isn't the first part, it's the last part. So personally, I like to do previews using a system based on how likely it is the team will win the championship based on recent form and the factors we're aware of. So what I do is I break them down into categories and I start at the top and work my way down. And that is where you're already going to see some very interesting details, but I'll get to each as I go through each section. So the first section, understandably, we're starting at best chance to win the tournament, is favourites. And what we're talking about here is teams that are favoured to win the tournament with the best chance to win. Now, funnily enough, I actually think there are only 3 names that I'm comfortable putting in this category. And even among these 3 names, there's nobody that's a clear-cut favourite in the way that teams like in the past, SK Gaming, FaZe, Astralis, if you keep going back far enough, the Fanatics of the world, go back even far enough, Envious, Virtus.pro, these teams were favourites in a very different way than any of these teams are here. Because of the 3 teams that I picked as my favourites, I've picked FaZe Clan, Mouse Sports, and Fnatic. And there are factors as to why each of them isn't necessarily a lock to win or make the final. But let's get into that. So start with FaZe Clan. So obviously the big move was they lose Olofmeister, they get in Exist. Now Olofmeister did play a very interesting role in this team, but I will go ahead and say it, I'm willing to say it, I think he had the least impactful role of the 4 players who aren't the in-game leader. And what I mean by that is, in the game itself, I do think he played a valuable role in terms of certain sites. It looked as though he played as the supportive player. Certain maps on T-side, it looked as though he was at times an entry fragger. I do think he played a valuable role in that sense, but I never saw this as a team that had amazing strats, that really relied on like pure entry fragging in the same way. So I do feel as though this is a team where he did a good job, but it still generally came down to how many of the big hitters turned up. We're talking about Nico, Guardian, Rain, depending on the tournaments. He hasn't been very good recently. But those are the ones where if they deliver the superstar performances, then yeah, the guys who are generally doing supportive things like Olofmeister and within a different context Rain, they have to contribute, they have to help, but you tended to win or lose and live or die if you got those massive performances from those big stars. Because I've seen games where actually Olofmeister and Rain had good games, but they still lost overall. So I have to say, I don't think it's the end of the world replacing them with Exist. With that said, I do think Exist, while in a team like this, you're going to frag, you're not going to be playing a pure role. I do think he has to become more of the supportive player, and he has to embrace that. And now I will say, throughout his career, Exist has had a very good track record of teammates liking him, which tells me something about his attitude, the way he plays in the game. So, okay, fair enough. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that. In that case, maybe there's actually a small chance this FaZe could be a better team. They lose some fragging power, but maybe they shore up some of the team component. But that's the thing. For me, the focus here isn't about fragging. Like Richard thinks Exist will come in and he'll frag and it'll be much better than he was in NIP. To me, that's irrelevant. My question is, how can he fit into a team structure in this team, which Olofmeister did a certainly capable job. I don't blame him for them losing tournaments. But I don't think Olofmeister is as suited to playing that sort of a role, quite frankly. And I feel like actually Olofmeister would be better at a different team, even though he wouldn't have as much success. So the key thing to talk about here with FaZe, and the reason why they are still the #1 favourite to win this tournament, is because they still have those heavy hitters. They still have 3 players who, if you put them in any other team, would be the best player. They have Nico, they have Guardian, they have Rain. These guys, each of them can be an MVP of a tournament. Each of them has had runs of 3 months where they're on fire. Each of them has been star players in the past and been in top teams and had deep finishes. They have the raw talent here, still to this day, to win this and any tournament. So, once you've moved past those guys, you have to say Carrigan has a lot to prove still, even with this stand-in. Because with a field as wide open as I've told you this tournament is, there's an even better chance, in theory, than some of the past tournaments to win. Like, you look at this tournament now, and you say, even with the stand-in, if you're FaZe, you still should be able to win. These are a lot of teams that are in flux and new lineups, and you've still got generally the main core of what made you win. You've got Karrigan, you've got the big stars, the big hitters. Then you've got to add in, your map pool was looking pretty good a couple of months ago, but that's where the questions started to be raised. Because we saw the team was trying to really push into cash because they thought they might play SK. They were playing Train more. But these maps have been very questionable and have been the site of some very key losses for FaZe Clan. Then, like against Virtus.pro, against Fnatic, lesser teams. They've generally been willing to play Nuke if people go there, but that Nuke game against Team Liquid, some of the more recent games, that doesn't feel like a map that they have comfort on. Now, they've been willing to play it because they've got mad fraggers and other teams aren't comfortable on it. But I think that that's ended up being a bit of Russian roulette when they play it. So I think they typically should stay away from that. And I think even though they've been trying to flex the map pool and go elsewhere, and they've got such firepower they can make a lot of maps work, I think this is an example of a tournament where you pick your spots as to when you play cash and trade. If possible, you can have a lot of best of threes. Just go into Mirage and Overpass if you think it's not the best for the opponent, because it's amazing for FaZe Clan. So go back to your strengths, build from those, and pick your moments when you go elsewhere. If they do that, FaZe can absolutely make the final here. FaZe can win the tournament. FaZe are locked to make top 4. Mouse Sports. Now, Mouse Sports just won the V4 Future Festival. So you might say, why aren't they just the clear-cut #1? Right, well, first of all, yeah, they also won Star Series, right? This is pretty good stuff. The problem is, when I watch the Mouse Sports team play, I haven't seen that much development in the Mouse Sports team over 2018. For me, this is the team that at the end of 2017 was in the same position. That's why they were able to almost beat FaZe and win ECS, but didn't. So the talent in this team is nuts. Like, yeah, they're a poor man's FaZe, but if anything, they might actually have better synergy between those players than FaZe does, even though FaZe's got better players. So I actually think they're a very good mix of stylistic elements there. With that said, they absolutely ride that talent a massive amount, just as FaZe does. That's why they're a poor man's FaZe as well. So as a result, they can win when they have the big performances from Oscar, from Sonny, from Rops. Yes, they can win, but is that going to happen regularly? It doesn't happen that regularly in FaZe that everyone turns up. It doesn't happen that regularly in Mouse that everyone turns up. Now, you don't need everyone to turn up when you've got this much talent. You need like 2.5 players or 2 players to turn up depending on the opponent. But this is a scenario where that makes it hard to see consistency from this team. I mean, this is a team which realistically could have 3 big titles right now. They could have won ECS. That was very close. They did win Star Series. They did win V4 Future Festival. But you know what? They didn't win ECS. The close loss. They absolutely could have lost 2-0 to Na'Vi in the final Star Series. Simple was single-handedly carrying Na'Vi to the win, and Na'Vi shit the bed at that point in time. Then you have the V4 Future Festival. In the deciding map, they were down something like 10-14 to Virtus.pro, and they were on like an eco where I think one person had an AWP or something. I think it was Oscar with an AWP, and then the rest of them had like CZs and stuff. So they could have lost that one. So they could have 3 titles right now. They have 2, or they could have 0. So this is a very, very tenuous grip at the top that Mouse Sports has. So at the moment, with all this flux elsewhere, yeah, they're really solid. Personally, though, I see them as a bit of a placeholder team at the top right now. And I think when other teams become more established, they'll drop down to where I think they should be, which is like 3rd or 4th best team in the world. Really great upset potential, fun team to watch, cool team to root for, but not going to be the dominant #1 team. Then you go and look at Fnatic. Fnatic's results are what mean I have to put them here, because they have won 2 massive events in terms of prize money, but once you start breaking down the events, VeXii, yes, good event, good format, good amount of teams, good prize money. WSG, it's just the prize money, isn't it? Like, realistically, they had some good teams there. The teams never got even to play them, never got to face them, and they almost lost WSG. So once you start to break it down, Fnatic's kind of like claim to being a favourite does fall away, but they've had so many big wins and overall performance over the last 2 events, you can't really take it away from them in this kind of depleted field of established squads. I do personally think that I would say, even though they're in the favourites, I don't think that they will actually win the tournament. And one of the main reasons why is, one of the reasons I was shocked that they won IEM VeXii is because that finals performance from flusha was utterly legendary shit. That was like he wound the clock back 2 years and came out with his absolute best and did everything that you expect from flusha and classic Fnatic ballsy plays. Problem is, he hasn't done that before with this lineup, and he doesn't tend to do it generally. So I thought it was an overperformance. I think once you take that flusher performance away, you know what? You've still got the dangerous, aggressive power of Lekro. You've still got the incredible consistency and all-around game of Crims, and you've got some nice strats from Golden. But JW's a hit and miss, Flusher is hit and miss, Firepower can be hit and miss overall when you compare them to a Mouse Sports or a FaZe. The map pool I actually think is a bit thin for this team. I know that, yes, fundamentals and team play will get you through a lot of maps that you aren't super strong at, which is how they won IEM, but I actually feel as though generally this is a team that's going to rely more on team play, on consistency, on some basic tactics and fundamentals. So I think they can be consistent. Like, I think they're a team that's got a very good chance to make playoffs, maybe make top 4, but I don't see them going to the final or winning the final. Obviously, I can't know who they're going to play in the semi-final. You do have to mention, though, they do have Crims, who I absolutely think has got to be in your top 5 players in the world. What an amazing player. At the moment, he's just absolutely unreal. Now, the dark horses are the teams where, yeah, they have a shot to win, but you wouldn't outright favour them, or there's some good factors as to why they wouldn't outright, but they've got such dangerous qualities, you have to consider them. Now, I've only picked 3 teams for this as well. I could have picked like 6, but I decided some of the other ones were just going off name value, and I demoted them. So the dark horses I picked are Team Liquid, Astralis, and Na'Vi. So Team Liquid, obviously they have a player change. They have Taco joining instead of Steel. Now, I made a video about this topic. Basic gist is, they're a very solid team right now. They are either one piece or one tweak away from championships, so they're already right on the brink. I do think that Taco can either be just a sideways move that doesn't change that position, or can be a slight upgrade, which maybe shores up some of the weaknesses, makes them a bit better, and therefore, especially in a depleted field, in terms of overall legendary all-time great teams, you have a real chance to start racking up tournaments and taking trophies. So the main thing for Team Liquid with me is I want to see Taco hopefully bring in a little bit of championship grit, a bit more clutch factor, or facilitate some of those stars that are there to be even 0.5% better. That could be enough to win a match. And also, more importantly, I want to see if this evolution of the team manifests in the map pool. Because if we can get something like Overpass up there, if we can get Train to be better, now their map pool goes from being good and a nice cross section, like they've got half of a map pool which at the moment fits against all the teams because the people are playing Inferno, Mirage, etc., and not playing Cash and Nuke, which are the maps that Team Liquid doesn't and can't play. But I actually feel as though if they can add that one extra middle map to this pool, then they will be in an amazing position no matter who they play. Because at the moment they can match up in a series, but they need the one extra map, in my opinion, to become really strong to be assured of winning a lot of these series and not have it come down to a tense third map. So right now, I think for Team Liquid, pretty good chances, but they've got to show me that extra thing before I can give them, like, you will win the tournament. Because at the moment they've had very good placings, but they only won the Summit. Then you go over to Astralis. Now, online, they had a sick run of form. And I will point out, a sick run of online form in EPL and ECS is also what happened when they brought in Glaive in latter part of 2016. They had an amazing run online, went to LAN, had a bunch of top 4s, and then broke through and started winning championships. So you look at the recent form. Obviously, they had top 4 at IEM. They could have made top 4 at Star Series, but a nice performance by Flamey and Simple took care of that. They were a little bit, funny enough, bad under pressure, like that first map, for example. So this is a team where they're gradually seeming to improve. Now, start at the top of the team. Device seems to be back. Online form looks great. Last LAN looked really, really good. That's a great sign because Magisk has just been solid. Now, solid's good. Kirby was inconsistent even though he had similar numbers. So if he can just be solid and add something to their team component, then we can let Glaive go to work. Then we can let the team quality go to work. We already know they tend to handle star players. They tend to match up pretty well with teams. This is right back where you want Astralis to be, but they still haven't made that jump up to favourite status yet, where you really felt like they were threatening to win the title. Now, the map pool's pretty nice, but they have one glaring problem at the moment, which is that thus far, they have not proven themselves to be good on Inferno with this lineup. And that is an issue because that is the most played map in the top end of the competitive scene right now. Now, they've got a lot of other good maps, and maps like Train and Overpass definitely give you a chance to flex up what you want to do against people. And by the way, Astralis also is one of those teams that can play Nuke if they want to against teams that are uncomfortable. But if you look overall, lack of Inferno or inability to win on Inferno will cost you at the moment in Counter-Strike. So that's a big question mark for me. Na'Vi is here for one reason and one reason alone. And his name is Simple. Now, he's the best player in the world. At the moment, if you look at his form, he looks like he might be the best player to ever play Counter-Strike. That alone can do anything for you. It can win you a map. It can win you a match. It can maybe win you a tournament. We've almost saw that at Star Series in ridiculous fashion, where they had no business even making top 4, but almost won the tournament. With that said, Simple alone, when you combine the entire field, probably isn't going to win you the tournament. So the person I'm still looking at here is Electronic. When I saw Electronic play at WESG with Team Russia, he goes back to being that sick player you saw on Flipside. He's just a monster. So I want to know, are they going to figure out how to enable Electronic more? Are they going to unlock him more? Is he still just going to be a decent, solid player? Or is he going to be someone who can contribute more in fragging? Edward has already made a lot of mistakes, a lot of issues with him. I don't know if we're going to see any change in that front. So personally, I think Edward's the only, Electronic's the only one I can reasonably see making any sort of a change. If he doesn't, Na'Vi very likely will just be like top 8 team, won't go further. Simple will be amazing, and the rest of the team will cost them a chance at it. But you have to at least give them the dark horse potential, because they do have a one-man army right now. Now, for the best of the rest, which is what I'm calling the rest of it, so I took 6 teams out there with favourites and dark horses. These are the teams that, of all the other teams remaining, these are at least the best of those teams. And this is where I ended up putting a bunch of squads. I put 5 different teams in here, some of the names of which, the first 3 in fact, you're going to be like, why aren't they in the dark horses? Because if you consider the current relevant factors, they have no reason to be. So I'm going to start off with a name you would never think we would have down in the 3rd category, and that is SK Gaming. How can that be, right? SK, a lock for every top 4, the most clutch core, always winning tournaments, best player in the world in coldzera, amazing players, well, at least until recently with Simple, amazing players with Fur, Fallen, so clutch under pressure. But you know what? This isn't that SK Gaming. They have Stewie 2K now. Totally different look for them. Totally different team for them. They've lost Taco. Some of that supportive element. Something that helped coldzera. Something that shored up the squad. A squad that actually, in latter days since the Phelps era, had been skewing more towards fragging rather than having solid tactics and basic fundamentals, etc. They were good under pressure, but that's a different kind of factor. So I think you look at it. Right now, there's no reason, especially with the recent performances where their placings were so dire, even with their old lineup, there's no reason to say right now that SK is a dark horse to win this tournament. Now, I think this could be a dangerous team. I think they can do a lot. But as of right now, they're just a team in the tournament. That's it. G2. This is a squad where, again, you look at the talent, this could be a dark horse team. But there's 2 big changes here. You've got NBK as in-game leader, a role he's never thrived at, so he's got to prove that he can do that on any level. And this was a team that already was somewhat in disarray in terms of what style they wanted to play. They stuck with that one style for like a year. Wasn't that great. Then you have Mixwell's added to the team. Okay, they say he can speak French. He's definitely a versatile player. He's a player, I think, even in terms of emotionally, in terms of socially, probably fits this squad. But will he be able to play within their style? Will their communication style work with him? He's a guy who works fantastically well off comms. If they can do that, if he can really understand French well, he can do a lot for this team. But they've lost Shoxy, the talismanic player of their squad. He was, by the way, one of the better players they had recently. So for me, if they're going to make it, they're going to make it as a real team. Like, they're not going to do any of the things the old G2 did and be a French super team and just play crazy all over all the maps and rely on Kenny S going ham and Apex having amazing entry fragging games. They've got to win as a squad. They've got to be more in the vein of a Fnatic and Astralis for my money if this squad's going to work. And they could do it, but at the moment, we haven't got any lands. So we have nothing to base that off right now. Now, Cloud9, again, another team. They won the major. First of all, they lost their talismanic player. I did a video about this. They lost Stewie 2K. They got FNS. Now, I like getting FNS, real in-game leader, guy who runs a real system. Now I think we start the clock on the Skadoodle test. If Skadoodle does not make big improvements on LAN or look much better playing under FNS, then Skadoodle just is who he has been for the last year and a half, and he is a decayed, atrophied player who will never be a top AWPer again or relevant as a top AWPer again. If FNS can get more of him, which is what Cloud9 is banking on, and my whole theory from last year when I said they should recruit FNS, then okay, now we can start to make some progress. Because I think this squad overall will be solid. Now, the map pool is a real question mark for me because I thought that Cloud9 really sort of stood on their heads on certain maps at the major, and every tournament since we've seen those maps start to disappear, especially some of the ones that people like to play at the moment, Inferno, Overpass. But with that said, firepower is the first place I have to really worry about this team, because in the old squad, They never had a real heavy hitter. They had Automatic, who had some very good stats and generally was looking very good. But overall, their best performance, which was the major, they did it by committee. Now, they don't have that committee anymore because Stewie's gone and they've replaced him with FNS. So they've downgraded in terms of skill and in terms of someone to be part of that committee of players. So for me, you have to forget the committee approach. You have to reformulate and go back to roles. So I need, in this team, for them to be good, to be a top 8, top 4 team, I need Tarek to be a star player. I need Automatic to be a star player. I need Rush to play a role. Now that Twch's gone, go into that entry role. I need Skadoodle to be a slightly better than he was Orpa. Give me more in terms of that sense. And now we've got the roles sorted. Now we've got a real in-game leader. Now you can start to look at this as like the American Fnatic, and they can be a top 5, top 6 team and really solid, nice fundamentals, really good all-around game, start to build up the map pool. That's where you could start to see some future for Cloud9, and that's realistically where you expect them to go. Because I could see a world in which this lineup is better than the one that had Stewie 2K. What? How can you say that? I don't mean that they're going to win the major. That lineup itself wasn't as good as the 3 days that they went through that playoff run to win the major. That wasn't their real level. That was a one-off. But if you look at their overall level, where they were just top 4, but they had no real chance to go much further, they had good fragging, but they didn't have amazing consistency in style of play. They were very up and down in terms of style of play. The map pool wasn't that deep. It's sort of half a map pool again, and in their case, not really the right half. I think you add in these roles and you get people into shape. I think this could be a team which is slightly better overall and matches up better against opponents. Now, the other 2 teams I had here were Gambit and Nip. Gambit, I just have to give them credit for the names. They have enough talent and enough names here. They should be in this mix. With that said, their form has been utterly dog shit in 2018. They recently just went to that bets.net Masters. And at that tournament, they managed to lose basically all the maps you think of them as being decent on. They were losing all over the place. They lost a best of 3 to Godsent, not a good team. They lost the best of 3 to Fragsters, maybe a team on the rise, but not a good team. They basically, at the moment, are in dire straits. They ruined Hobbit by making him in-game leader. Now they're giving him his life back. Let's see if he can return to form, because he is a must in their team as a star player. Now they've made Seized the in-game leader. Seized was a terrible in-game leader in Na'Vi, so a lot to prove from him. Adren has had his issues ever since he became the in-game leader after the player break, and took that point in time. He's never gone back to being that amazing all-around player. So at the moment, Gambit has leveraged and compromised all of their star player elements in the search for an in-game leader, which they still have not found. So I expect Gambit to be something of what we've seen recently and over the last 6 months, which is a team that plays people close, a team that has a surprisingly wide map pool, that they can play a lot, even though they don't have a deep map pool. A team that has some solid players, a decent bunch of veterans and talents, but I don't think they're going to be... They might not even make playoffs at a tournament like this. I do not think we'll be seeing a deep tournament run. I don't have a lot of faith in the Seized to in-game leader move, and I feel like Hobbit must get back to as good as he was before, or they don't have a whole lot of chances. Now, in terms of Nip, they are a team on the rise. They're a team where you can still have some hope for them. They've got Dennis. They're certainly trying to switch up what they're doing to some degree. They've got some nice talent in the team. They just don't have any superstars, and they're not really in any sort of position, especially in an era where so many of those top teams, FaZe, Mouse Sports, Liquid, are like really nice cross-sections of players and also fragged by committee. Nip's just a worse version of that at the moment. So I think Nip, it's going to be all about whether they can get some Nip magic, get some clutch wins, get some great kind of like gritty matches where that veteran quality can come out. If they can't, I expect them to be like, I mean, a chance to get out of the group, but that's about it at the moment. Now, the last 2 categories, second to last, is going to be called also runs. These are teams which are just in the tournament. They're not going to make deep runs. They're not going to do a lot. They're just in the tournament, and they're also runs. But they're not the worst of the worst, which we'll get to at the end. Now, the also runs, I'm going to say, first of all, Space Soldiers. Now, the big problem I have with Space Soldiers is I don't buy their map pool at all. Like, their upset wins, they don't then show consistency on those maps. They have to usually have Calyx or Xantares frag out completely to get these big upset wins. So that's not very reliable against the best teams in the world. And I have seen them lose so many close maps that I don't really buy them as a team that at the moment either has the experience or sort of the grit to be able to get upsets with a consistency that makes them no longer upsets and makes you a better team. I mean, obviously the WSG example in the third map is the most ridiculous one, where they lost like, what was it, like 9 or 10 rounds in a row when they were on their T side on Mirage and could not execute. So they're certainly a cool team for a little one-off best of one upset. And they could do that against a number of teams. And they have the players in Calyx and Xantaz to frag out and to have a knotty one map and to do some cool things. But at the moment, they have not shown us that they are a quality team in the context of this field. Now, Renegades, I think they're quite the opposite, because in their case, it's not that they frag out, and it's not that they win and they do one-off upsets. They're a pretty solid team, actually. Their problem is there's just so many other good teams out there that are better. So I have to say immediately, they can't replace Snaf's firepower. That's just not going to happen, and they haven't been able to do so. So they lack for a star player. The rest of the team's solid enough, but they still have the same quality they used to have, where they're really fragile and brittle when it's a close game, and they tend to fall apart. Map pool's not bad, actually. They've got a few maps they can play. Problem is, they're not a team that seems to have immense confidence in themselves. I think losing Naf hurt them a lot. And at the moment, all these other quality squads, it would be an upset for them to even make it out of the group. Now, the last team in this group is Tyloo. And Tyloo, I have to put in this group because they have had some upsets. They have had some wins and games in international and domestic competition that make you say, hey, this isn't that ridiculous, actually. This is a team that can do some things. So this guy, Excurate, who they brought in to be the in-game leader of the AWPA and change things up, really has changed this team. This is a team that looked like when they'd lost all those star fraggers in the past, they looked in deep shit. Now they're actually a decent team in terms of, at times, fragging. So I will say, everyone who spent over 1 year raving about Bentet, could you shut the fuck up? I've watched this guy play a bunch of international tournaments now, and he never did any of that shit that you guys were raving out. This is like Fancy 1 all over again, where you guys were fucking raving all day long. I don't know what it is about like experts in Counter-Strike who have to pick a player who's never done anything and like rave about him like he's the next Simple. No, there's a reason why I only pick a select few players to hail as the next coming of the great players, because people like this, dominating a lesser scene doesn't mean that you're going to transfer and do that against better competition. In fact, the fact that you dominate so hard domestically means that when you go to the top level and you're so used to being an advantage, being able to do this, having a bit of free reign, always being in a position where you're going to win out a fight, means that actually it will be even harder for you until you adapt, or unless you actually are as good enough to make it at that point in time. So for me, Bentet, at the moment, has not proven it whatsoever at this sort of level. So I don't see them having a star power. I think in a tournament format and a tournament, a field like this, it's going to be very hard to win the best of 3 to get out of any group. So it's not going to happen for them. The last group is the no chance group. And these are the teams who have no chance to do almost anything, but especially to win the tournament. So there are 2 teams in this group, and those are Team Envious and those are Valiance. Team Envious, okay, they've changed Kiyoshima. We saw them at WSG. They still did fuck all at WSG. Very weak field at the tournament. That was a chance to do something. I mean, admittedly, they didn't have Scream, because obviously in that tournament, Scream is Belgian. They had to instead play with a French player. With all that said, though, Kiyoshima's a good player. They've got some good players in this team. In fact, you look now, top to bottom, they've got some pretty solid names. Still, we haven't seen any sort of style, any sort of leadership. We only have seen like 1.5 maps where they had the amazing Cobblestone and could also play a bit of Inferno. That was like 6 or 8 months ago at this point in time. Oh, I guess it wasn't that long ago. I guess it was like 5 months ago. This is a team that has underwhelmed consistently. Doesn't matter what tier of land they're at either. So at the moment, I see them with no chance. I've got to see something from this lineup before I start to put any kind of belief in them. The last team is Valiance. Now, it's not even in any way controversial to have them here. They're the least well-known team here. They're the team that's done nothing. They're only really known because they're the team that, as far as I remember, everyone's raved about that guy Hunter, who's like Nico's brother. Okay, cool. Let's see if they can do anything here. At the moment, no basis whatsoever to say that they will. Right. The group stage, I will do a very quick version of a group stage prediction. So we've got 4 groups. As I said, opening game, best of 1. Elimination game, lower bracket first round, best of 1. Winners match, upper bracket, best of 3. Deciders match, lower bracket, best of 3. So Group A is FaZe, Cloud9, G2, Envious. So obviously, in terms of names, it looks crazy. Not actually as crazy overall. Like, it's actually a pretty fair group, I think, when you consider G2's a complete unknown. Cloud9's fallen off a lot. And you got FaZe as the big favourite in there, and Envious at the moment has shown us nothing. So you look at this group, right, FaZe almost certainly should get out of this group. Admittedly, with Exist, for all I know, everything can change in the lineup, it could be total shit. But I would still say with this group, they are very likely to get out of it. especially with the best of threes in the format. Now, it's obviously between C9 and G2 as to who gets out next. Now, C9 is a very solid team. G2 has a lot to prove. This is a real tough one. I feel like you can go either way on this one. And I feel like map pool is a very interesting detail. Because even though the old Cloud9 often played very well against G2, Stu2K was a big part of that. And then also you have to add in, G2's always had a pretty solid map pool, whereas I don't know where Cloud9's is right now. So actually, in this kind of a setting, I think C9's a good enough team, but I actually might pick G2 to get out here. I think FaZe and G2 are the ones I'm going to go ahead and say get out with the best of threes. Now, going to Group B, we've got Mouse Sports, SK, NiP, and Valiance. Right, Valiance, throw them out. They're not going to get out. Mouse Sports, yes, I think they're very likely to get out, especially because of the best of threes. They've got a really nice set of talent in their team. They've got a really nice map pool relative to this group. Now, SK and NiP are obviously the next two. It's hard to know where SK is going to be at, but I do think they've got enough quality. They've got amazing pieces like coldzera. I still think even with some of the teething problems they might have with Stewie, SK should get out here. NiP, not really buying them overall. They definitely have good upset chances here, but realistically, with the format, I think Mouse and SK are the favourites to get out here. Group C is Fnatic, Na'Vi, Renegades, Tyloo. I actually think this one, Fnatic's got the well-rounded game that they should almost certainly get out first or second here. Now the others, this one's wide open for me because yes, with Simple, Na'Vi absolutely can get out. They probably should. I will pick them on paper. But there's a world in which they shit the bed and play so badly, it doesn't matter what Simple does. And Renegades gets out. Then you've got to add in, Tyloo has familiarity playing against Renegades. Tyloo's a team that you're not really going to know if you're a team like a Na'Vi. If your team's like Fnatic, you generally don't tend to play against them much. Although obviously Tyloo was able to beat Fnatic at Star Series. So there's a small chance for the dark horse here, which on this group is Tyloo. I don't think it's going to happen overall. Renegades also solid enough team. It's not like they have any massive heavy hitter. I think they've actually gotten a very good group, both Tyloo and Renegades, relative to where they are, 3rd and 4th seeds in terms of pools. I think they've gotten the best chance because Fnatic's probably the weakest of the #1 seeds. And then you look at, well, I guess Team Liquid's probably ranked #1 as well as a pool 1 seed. And Na'Vi's definitely a very weak pool 2 seed. So they've got their shots, but I would still say Fnatic and Na'Vi probably. Group D's not a bad one, where it's Team Liquid, Astralis, Space Soldiers, and Gambit. So upset potential here. Team Liquid, yes, I think they will get out of this group. I think actually Taka will be an upgrade. I think they're going to be strong at this tournament. Astralis also, I expect to do another gradual improvement and still be very good. I think this one's fairly clear-cut. Space Soldiers have a shot in the best of 1. Gambit are always there to play even in best of 3s, but it will be Team Liquid and Astralis. I'm somewhat sure of at this point in time. I might do some sort of a preview when it gets to the round of 8, but now let's do the esports pool stuff. Right, so here we are on esports pools. First things first, I'm going to go to fantasy. I'm going to go ahead and go into the classic pool, which is the one that's free to enter. Doesn't cost you anything, but you can win skins. Let's have a look. So first prize, AK-47 Redline, minimal wear. Second prize, M4A4 Hellfire, minimal wear. Third prize, StatTrak M4A1S, Blood Tiger Factory New. Fourth prize, StatTrak Duelborough as Retribution, well worn, much like people in your family who it would be insulting to say were used up and reamed out. Right, so we're going to enter this contest. Free to enter. And obviously we're picking the players here. So let me see. How does this one work, actually? Why don't they have the prices? What, you can just pick any players? I'm actually confused by this. What does that mean? CL. Classic. Pick your players from the teams. Then limits and overall pick limits. Ah, it's not a salary cap one. On this one, you just pick players. Okay, well, I didn't actually know that. I've never done that before. Let me see. Does that mean you can just pick... Right, you can only pick 2 players per team, it looks like. Ah, this is interesting. I've never seen this before, actually. So this is an interesting type. And actually, for this tournament, with how wide open it is, this is a real tough one. Because in theory, we could pick anyone. But for example, normally I would say, great. Oh, for stats, I'll go straight for coldzera. And wait a minute, though. Is SK going to make top 4? Are they going to make it deep? I don't know about that. So I've got to go by the teams I think will do well here. Then you look at a team like FaZe. They're very up and down. Who knows what's going to happen there? So, okay, first and foremost, just because anything's possible, I'm going to take my man Simple. He can put up the best stats ever. Then I'm going to go, and I've got to go to Mouse Spots because they're a really consistent team. Mouse Spots and Liquid, I feel like are teams I'm going to really make my dinner off right here. So I'm going to go to Mouse Spots. Where are we there? Mouse Spots. And I'm going to say, yes, Oscar, I will pick you as well. I think they're very likely to make a deep run. He is a really good player overall. Beyond that, though, I probably want another mouse sports player, not another Na'Vi player. Even though Na'Vi probably will do well, the stats might not be that crazy for them. So the other mouse sports player I'm going to pick, it's between Sonny and Rops, right? Because they're both really good players, but who's got the consistency? I actually feel like Rops is the one I'm feeling a little bit more, even though I personally think Sonny is currently a slightly better player than him due to style of play, but Rops' skills undeniable. Now, beyond that, remember, I want players who can make it deep, so I'll probably either want Astralis or Team Liquid, in my opinion. Fnatic also not bad. You could take Crims. Problem is you don't want to spread out too many teams, do you? Because then you won't know how many you're going to make it. So ideally, I think the best approach personally is pick from 3 teams. Pick 2 that you think will make it very far. Pick 2 players from each. And then pick another one. In this case, I'm just hoping Simple makes top 8 or top 4 and has crazy stats. So I'm going to have to say I either need to pick Fnatic players, but I don't really want to gamble on Lekro. I know Crims is amazing. So instead, I'm going to put my 2 picks into players from either FaZe or Team Liquid here. So what I have to ask myself is, in FaZe, are there players I can rely upon to give me those numbers? Or do I want to go Team Liquid where they've got a real nice breakdown? So I'm going to say Team Liquid because I think their placing's very good. I think they might be a better team here. NAF is such easy money right now. I'm going to take NAF. And then the other one I'm going to pick is Elige because the all-around game's there. I have no clue what's going to happen with Twist. He's been very up and down. Tiebreaker, I never know what to put for this. So I'll go ahead and put 20 seconds. And there we go. I'll submit my picks there. An error occurred, please try later. Well, there we go. Worked, right. Now we're also going to go and put a few cheeky bets on, shall we? So let's have a look what we've got here. Dreamhack Masters Marseille. It doesn't seem like enough, does it? Only 60 to 70. Right, I'm going to go ahead and bet on them. I'll bet €5. Then we're going to go and say Ninjas in Pajamas are favoured to beat SK Gaming. I will definitely be taking the SK Gaming side of that then. Wait a minute, what am I doing right here? Yes, SK Gaming. Right, for that one, I'm going to go more. I'm going to say 10. Seems reasonable. Let's have a look what else. Cloud9 G2. I like that one because that is a very 50-50 one. Since Cloud9's on underdog, even though I think G2 will actually win, for this case, I'll go ahead and say I'll pick the underdog. Just I think it's probably worth it. It's close enough matchup. I'll put a bet on that one. Wait a second. Let's have a look. Team Liquid's way too low value there, so that's pretty good actually. I'm liking that one. I'll put 10 on them. Let's have a look. Astralis at the moment. I mean, remember this stuff has just opened. They're actually an underdog here, so I'm definitely going to go ahead and put 10 on them. Renegades versus Na'Vi. That's pretty low, but then again, that is a pretty dodgy one. I'll say I'll put 5 on that one. And remember, as I said, there is a Gleam contest up, which the link will be in the description box below, which you can enter during any of the next 3 or 4 days, and you have the chance to win a bunch of G2 gear. This video was supported by Dean Tanglis, Twch, Sanity, Gman, Kokupsi, Andreas Westerlund, Alex Adams, Mikkel Hansen, Jerky's Minion, Anthony, Bash, Daniel Yordanov, Yordan Tsenkov, VeXii, Kevin Haupt, Jason A, and Travis G. Greb. Want to suggest a guest to appear on my show or a topic to discuss? Perhaps you'd like to ask me a question. In 2018, for the first time in history, you can directly influence and support my content with the Patreon link below. Unlock the code to the streets and join the Scrilluminati today.